What if time doesn't work the way we think it does? What if the person sitting next to you at work has been planning something unspeakable? Today I'm sharing 5 true stories from Reddit that will make you question everything around you. These aren't creepypastas. These aren't urban legends. These are real experiences from real people who lived through absolute nightmares. Story 1, The Time Vortex, the forest that stole time. This story comes from a former Boy Scout who experienced something that defies explanation. He was a teenager at scout camp with 2 friends, Amy and Harriet. Their leader asked them to walk into the woods to find a stick for carving. Simple enough. They walked for 15 minutes, memorizing their surroundings so they could find their way back. But when they turned around, their path had vanished. The trees looked like they'd knitted themselves together. Everything looked identical. They were completely lost. They walked for what felt like forever, eventually finding a concrete path, an abandoned shack they'd never seen, and finally a road where a woman gave them directions back. When they returned to camp, panicking and apologizing for being gone so long, their leader looked confused. He said they'd only been gone 25 minutes. Their 40-minute free time wasn't even over. But their watches and phones said they'd been gone for an hour and a half. All 3 of them remember those missing hours. The forest felt like a place where time didn't exist. Hours inside were only minutes in the real world. Where did that time go? Story 2, The Family in the Road, the Empty Stroller. In 2018, a woman in Nebraska was driving home around 10 p.m. on a dark, winding road through thick forest. The kind that passes a massive cemetery with almost no lighting. Windows down, music playing, enjoying the spring weather. Then she came around a curve and slammed on her brakes. A family stood in the middle of the road. A tall woman, a man, a child, and the woman was pushing a stroller. No flashlights. No phones. They'd been walking in complete darkness. Completely silent. She stopped behind them. They didn't move. Didn't even turn their heads. Just kept walking slowly down the center of the road. She turned her music down. Nothing but silence. Then all at once, they stopped. And very slowly, they all turned to face her car. Perfectly synchronized. She didn't wait to see their faces. Reversed at full speed, whipped around, and floored it. In her rearview mirror, they were gone. Vanished. The detail that haunts her most, the stroller was completely empty. No one believes her to this day. Story 3, The Racquetball Court, something was playing in the dark. This happened to a security guard working the overnight shift at a local port. The site was massive, nearly 2 miles in radius. 3 guards worked the night shift, and they'd all heard stories that the place was haunted. People had died there in accidents over the years. The port had an old gym for workers, complete with a sauna, weights, and a racquetball court with glass doors. One night around 2:30 a.m., he and his partner Mike decided to work out instead of their usual racquetball game. The building was dead silent except for the hum of electricity in the lights. No AC, nothing else running. 15 minutes in, they heard a loud thump. They ignored it. But then it happened again. And again. The thumps were coming from the racquetball court on the other side of the wall. They radioed their lieutenant. He was at the front gate, nowhere near them. The thumps started happening faster. One after another. Like someone was throwing a ball against the wall. They approached the glass door and aimed their flashlights inside. One of the balls was rolling slowly across the floor by itself. The court was empty. Someone, or something, had been throwing the balls against the wall. Playing in the dark. They ran. Full sprint back to the front gate, both of them in tears. The lieutenant saw them and his face went pale. He said, "That's why guards quit all the time. There's something evil here." He showed them security footage, dark figures passing through offices, lights switching on and off by themselves. The guard didn't last long after that night. Story 4, The Coworker's Journal, the plan he wrote down. This is one of the most chilling stories I've ever read, and it's absolutely real. A woman worked with a man for over 3 years. They worked closely on projects, sat near each other. He seemed a bit off, but nothing alarming. One day in September, she showed up to work and saw 10 detectives swarming the office. Her coworker was in handcuffs. She asked what was happening. They told her he'd been arrested for something disgusting. They couldn't share details yet. Over the next 3 hours, she watched them dismantle his workstation, bag evidence, take photos. Detectives pulled her aside repeatedly, asking about his character. She told them the truth: he'd always given her a weird feeling. She'd even told her husband that if she ever went missing, this guy would be the first suspect. She had no idea how close that came to being real. The detectives had served a search warrant at his home. They found more than they expected. Way more. In the final interview, one of the lead detectives could barely look at her. He was crying as he told her to make sure she stayed safe. They'd found a journal. He'd been writing about her for over a year. He wrote that he wanted to be with her, but the problem was that she was married. The journal detailed a plan to set her husband up for cheating, to break up their marriage. And it ended with her death, caused by him. The detective said what was written in between those plans was the most vile thing he'd ever read. So disturbing that a veteran detective cried while telling her about it. He was charged and is now looking at a very long prison sentence. But she still thinks about it. It keeps her up at night. She worked next to him for 3 years and never knew what he was planning. You never really know someone. Not even your coworkers. Story 5, The Apartment, the room that locks from outside. This final story is deeply disturbing. I'm keeping some details vague for good reason. In the late 1990s, a young man was using early internet chat rooms to meet people. Online dating was brand new, and people were still learning about internet safety. He'd briefly chatted with someone online, we'll call him Slim Guy. About a week later, he got an anonymous email warning him, "My friend met Slim Guy from that chat room. He really hurt him. The police wouldn't do anything. Stay away from him." The email was vague. No details. Could have been a jealous ex, could have been a troll. He kept it in mind but didn't think much of it. Weeks later, Slim Guy messaged him asking to meet up. He hesitated, remembered the warning, but decided to check it out anyway. The address was on a busy residential street. What could go wrong? He arrived at a duplex. Slim Guy answered, a normal-looking guy in his 40s. Soft-spoken, office worker type. But the apartment was strange. The kitchen was spotless but empty. No furniture. Didn't look like anyone lived there. Slim Guy said a friend used to run a doctor's office there. He maintained the building. Then Slim Guy shut the back door and locked it with a keyed deadbolt, the kind you need a key to open from the inside. He put the keys in his pocket. Red flags everywhere. When confronted, Slim Guy nervously said they didn't want anyone interrupting them. But his stammering, his body language, something was very wrong. The guy demanded the door be unlocked. Slim Guy, clearly intimidated, unlocked the deadbolt and left the keys on the counter. Slim Guy led him toward a hallway. In the living room was a large stainless steel table with a channel around the edge. Years later, he realized, it was a mortician's table. At the end of the hall was a bedroom. The door had a keyed deadbolt. That locked from the outside. Inside was a chair. A phone sitting on the floor. And wood paneling covering the walls, including where the windows should have been. No light switch inside the room. It had been covered by the paneling. He asked Slim Guy what they were doing there. Slim Guy stammered, "Some hot, man-to-man, fun. Nobody talks like that in real life." It sounded rehearsed. Fake. That was it. He said he was leaving. Walked straight past Slim Guy, out the door, to his car. He never reported it. What would he say? The guy had a weird room and a strange table? No crime had been committed yet. But he couldn't stop thinking about that anonymous warning. About the room that locked from outside. The chair. The phone. The missing light switch. What happened to people who went into that room? A few years later, there were reports of young men disappearing after visiting a specific bar in the area. Some were found dead across the state line. He never found out if Slim Guy was involved. So there you have it. 5 true stories that prove reality can be scarier than any horror movie. A forest that steals time. A family that vanishes. Something playing racquetball in an empty room. A coworker with a journal full of murder plans. And a locked room that was waiting for its next victim. These people lived through these experiences. They're still processing what happened. Still looking over their shoulders. The scariest part? These things happened in normal places. A scout camp. A drive home. A workplace. An apartment on a busy street. Nowhere is truly safe. And you never really know what's lurking just beneath the surface of everyday life. So the next time something feels off, trust that feeling. It might just save your life. OUTRO. If you've experienced something like this, share it in the comments. Hit that like button if this gave you chills, and subscribe for more true scary stories. Stay safe out there. And trust your instincts.